Okay, welcome to today's class. And as you can see from your screen, this is what we are going to be working on there. So we have a landing page for a particular site, which is this news website. And this is what they want you to design for them. There like that. So how do you design what we have on this screen? So we are going to be using all our techniques that we've learned so far to achieve the site or to create this site there like that. So this is desktop design, but it comes with responsive design. So as you can see, this is how it's going to look like when you are viewing it on a small screen. So on a mobile screen, this is how it's going to look like. But once you go to tablets or a big screen, this is how it's going to look like. And how can we do this thing? All those techniques that we've learned is still what we are going to use there, so that we are combining them in a different ways. So everything I've done before is still what you are going to do there. The difference is that you are now combining them in a different way there. And if you look at the mobile, you see that all the menu. So if you look at the desktop, you see that we have this menu at the top. But once you go to mobile, there's nothing like that again. What you now have is this what we call hamburger menus. This thing is what we call hamburger like that. And once you click on it, as you can see here, it's going to pop out that menu. But we don't know how to do this, so we are going to skip this part. And that's what is going to take us into the next class once we are done with this design, which is going to be JavaScript. So in order for you to be able to do this stuff here now, you need JavaScript. So when you click on this button, then this thing is going to pop out. And again, when you click on the X, then it go back to this mode. But we can't do it right now because we only know about HTML and CSS. But in order for us to be able to build a functional site, we need to have the three of them together. So you need to have the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript. And that's the reason why we need to dive into JavaScript in our next class after this particular design that we want to work on. So if this design is going to take 2 classes, so after 2 classes, then we're moving into the JavaScript part. And from there, we'll be able to do everything that we have in a design. But right now, we can only do the part that doesn't require interaction. Any part that requires interaction, then we'll not be able to do it because the interaction is not going to be there without JavaScript. But the elements are going to be there, but the interaction is not going to be there. So if you click that hamburger from now till tomorrow and there is no JavaScript, nothing will happen. That's why we need to add JavaScript to what we've known before there. But for today, we're always going to focus on the HTML and the CSS part of this particular project. And I have the project already here, the file open. As you can see, the design is already inside the design folder. And at the same time, we now have the asset folder instead of just normal images that you are known for before. This one now, it contains font and the image. So which means this thing is telling us that we don't need to go online to look for font. The font is already part of the project. So today, or in this class, for this project, I'm going to be talking about how you can include local font, and the font that you have in your project, the one that you are not going to Google fonts to connect with. We've talked about how to connect to Google Font, but here now, we're going to be talking about how to connect to a font that you have locally in your project. So once the project load, is going to load that font from your project, not that it will go to Google or it will be using the user system to look for the font. So we are going to see how to do all this. But first, for every project, you need to set it up first. So this is what we did last time. So let me close this, which is going to be this product review. And under the projects, I'll be creating another folder here, which is going to be news site. So I'm going to be calling in this news site. And let me close all this one so that it'll be easier for us to see what we are working on. And inside this new site, so I'm going to create our basic file, which is going to be this index.html. Then after the index.html, we need our style.css. You can name it anything you want, but always make sure that you name your first page that you want to load as index, so that when you are loading it on the browser, you don't need to mention the name of the file. Anytime you name it, the file of the HTML as index, and you go to new site, it will load this index automatically for you. But if you name it another thing, then you have to make sure that you type it as part of the URL, and that's the reason I normally use this index. But if you use another name, which is possible, because if you have multiple pages on your site, you can have something like signup.html. So if you want to go to sign up here now, you always mention the signup.html every time. But index, you don't need to mention it because the browser is smart. It knows that index is the first page that is supposed to load when you don't mention any page there like that. And that's why I normally use this index in that way. But you can name it anything you want. So let me close the other one that we are not using here, like all this preview. And the other thing we need to do is to set up our assets, which is what we already have here. So in order for us to have all these assets in our project, we just need to drag it into that place, just like the normal way we used to do it. But there's some stuff I'm going to be deleting from this font. I don't need the static. The only one I just need is this. If you want to install it on your system one by one, or you want to include them one by one, as you can see, it have the bold, it have the extra bold version, it have the regular. But this inter variable here, it has included all these three together, and it comes with a small size there like that. So that variable will combine the three of them together into one. So instead of you loading the three fonts separately, the variable here has already combined all of them together in one. And that's the reason why I'm going to be deleting this static folder, because we don't really need it. The one we actually need is this variable here, because as you can see, it includes all the weights already. So we don't need to be including them one by one. But if you want to install them, or you only need one of them, then you can go with that all those other ones. But we need all of them because of the project. So now I have this font under the fonts folder like that, and for our images that we're going to use, everything are under the images, while the two folders are under the assets. And as you can see, the project is structured in a nice way. You don't have everything just put down under this new site. You can put everything there, but that's not good at all. You should always group your files according to what they are doing or how they are related to each other. Any asset should be under the asset. If it's just the image you have, then it will just be under the image that will be there. But you always see asset, the other asset, all the other things, or the video, audio, all the images, font, and everything will be under it. And if you still want to subdivide them like the way it is right now, if I want, I can just put everything under the image to the asset. But it's nice like this, because anytime I want to look at the image, I know where to go to. And anytime I want to look at the font, I know where to go to. Not that I will be scrolling up and down to look for the material there. Nothing wrong doing that, but it's always good that you do things in a professional way. And that's the reason why I'm teaching you right now how to do something like that. Not just do things anyhow, but we are doing it in a professional way like that. If you do it in another way, to work, but this is the way you're supposed to work. So we need to generate our page. This is our basic HTML page, which is something I have here. So from there, I'm going to be renaming it to the site news like that, or let me put Abubakar like this, so which is going to be there in that way, site news. Before we start writing code, you know what we normally do first? We need to know how we use to arrange our HTML, because that's very important. Before you start doing any coding stuff, you need to check your desktop or all the screen that is given to you, and you need to check how you are going to structure your page. So based on the way your HTML is, or based on the way the content is here, you are going to be generating the corresponding HTML and the layout, so that you'll be able to apply your CSS later on. And as you can see here, I will be checking both the desktop and the mobile, so that we know how to create the container and how I'm going to put the element together inside them like that. So, and if you look at it here, we have our browser, so we can think of this one as the body. So let me bring out my pen. So we can think of this one as the body. So this is the body, but inside the body, as you can see like that, we have the header section like this. So this is the header section. That's how it looks like on desktop, but it's going to be different on mobile. But for now, we're just structuring this. And again, after the header, we now have the main content that we want to display on the screen. So we have the header inside the body. Then apart from that, we have the content that we want to show. And as you can see inside this main too, there's a lot of group that is going on there. So there's a lot of groups. So if you want to group all this one now, you see that everything here are grouped together as one, and everything down here too are grouped together as one. Then inside this nested one too, like that, you now have a separate group. So this is another group on its own, and this is another group on its own, like that. And if you look at it, they are the same thing. The difference is just the content. So which means we need to use class and design one, then copy for the other one, and we update the content. So the same thing here too, like that. Even though the two of them are together, they are still separate. So this is another container on its own, which is by the right, and again on the left side, this is another container on its own, like that. And inside this place too, there is still different element, and that's how you'll be doing it. You treat everything as a box, and you relate them together, how they are placed. Are they placed on top of each other, or they are placed side by side? And you'll be able to use your flex property to lay out this thing. What is wrong with this system? Why is it slowing down? All right, so what we just need to do here is that, as you can see from this container too, like that, we are going to be having this image at the top, and below it we are going to be having this nested container. We are going to be doing all this in one by one. I'm just explaining what all of them, like combining them together. This is what we are going to have finally, but we are going to be doing them one by one. So you have your paragraph here. As you can see, it's a paragraph because it's just one item. But if you look at this one, it's not one item. So there's going to be a container, and inside the container we are going to have paragraph, and we are going to have the button. The same thing by this side too. We are going to have the header section for this. Then after the header section, we are going to have this group, and inside the group you have the heading and the text. Again, this is another group, or which is a list, like that, because it's a list of items. So we are going to be using lists to do what we have here, but putting them together through the CSS, everything is going to look like this. And let me remove everything that I have. So this is what you are going to have. All the content that we have, this is how it is going to look like on the page as a box. So as a box, this is everything that we have on the desktop. And you know, the mobile for this design, it's quite simple there, like that, because on the mobile they are just being stacked on top of each other. So that's the reason why you need to create a group, so that you'll be able to use your flex property. And on the mobile we are going to use direction of column, so that it will place them on top of each other. Then once we get to a bigger screen, then we'll make sure that the one that's supposed to be side by side is going to be having row, and the one that's still supposed to be on top of each other will still continue using the columns there, like that. And that's why it is very important for you to look at the way the thing are laid out. Then based on that, you generate the corresponding element. So I'm going to go back into the code, and we're going to start one by one. We already have the body, so we already have the body there, like that. So the next thing we need to create here is going to be this header. So we're going to be starting with them one by one. So we're going to be creating this header, but before, so we're going to be creating this header, but before I do that, don't forget all this content that we have here, they are not going to show on the desktop. So this one, or they're not going to be showing on mobile. What is going to show on the mobile there is here, is just this button. So which means you need to put all those menu in their own group, and again to this button is going to be in its own group, or it can just stand alone since it's just one item that is here. But if it is multiple item, you group them so that you can affect all of them at once. But if it's just one item, you can group it, or you just type that element alone, it will still work because it's just one item that is there. But for this one, I'm going to be using a button there, but for all this one, they are going to be grouped together, and they are links because they are supposed to take you to different pages. This is the home page, this is the new page, this is the popular page, this is going to go to trending page, and this is going to go to category page. But we don't have all those things, we just design them down, but they are not going to be going to any page like that. So let me go back into the code. We already have this our body. So the next thing we need to do, let me disable this AI. So the next thing we need to do here is to type our header, because we want to have the group there, like that. So inside this header, what do we have there? So inside the header, we need to have this. So inside the header, we need to have this. The first thing we need to have is the logo. So we need to have the logo. So this is the header that we want to design right now. So this is the header, and inside the header we have the logo, and at the same time we have this navigation here, and inside the navigation we have the A tag for each one of them. So this is another A tag, this is another A tag, because they are linked. They are supposed to take you from one place to another. So this is what we need to design there like that. So going back to this page, I'm going to be using A, because a logo, when you go to any site, your logo is always taking you back to the home page there like that. So this is going to be taking us back to the home page. I'm just going to pass this index.html like that, and inside this place we need to put our logo. How do we put the logo? If you look at it here, we already have the logo as part of the asset. So if you scroll down, as you can see, the logo is here, and in order for you to include it, you need to call the correct tag, which is going to be the img. But where is this thing coming from? It's coming from asset, and we've already talked about child linking. So in order for us to have access to it, we need to mention asset, then from there mention the image, and from there we'll be able to have access to the logo. In case this thing is not loading, then we can show this text to the user, but if it's loading, then you are going to see it there like that. And let me save the code, and it's not running yet. So in order for us to see what is going on, so we need to go live, and once this thing go live, it should appear on the browser, and once it appear, we should have our logo coming out there. But everything is not looking like the way we want it. But for now, we are only doing our structure, not the styling. So we are focusing on the structure. A lot of things might not look like the way it is right now, but once we get to the CSS, everything is going to come in place. So we are done with this part here. So we are done with this. So we need to work on this part. And why do we need to group them? The reason we need to group them is because of the CSS property we are going to be using later on. We talk about the flex. When you display flex, and when you now justify content, I told you it will move the one on the left to stay on the red, then the one that follows it will go to the right, and the spacing is going to be at the middle. So if you want to do something like this, just display as flex and justify content to be spaced between. But don't forget, flex work on direct element. So in order for it not to treat each one of them as item under this header, that's why we need to group them, so that it will move all of them at once, since they are part of this group like that. Not that it's saying this home separately, new separately, popular, and so forth like that. And that's the reason why we need to group them like that. Is because of the property that we're going to be using later on. And how do you group something like that? So anything like navigation, I've talked about it. So we need to use nav to group them together. If you want, you can use div, you can use span, you can use section, and so forth like that. All of them will work, but you should always use a corresponding tag where you need them. Not that because the other one will work doesn't mean you should use it at that point. So we use this nav tag to group anything, any links that deal with navigation. That means moving of user from one place to another on your site, or just moving user around. So you group them with nav. So yeah, I'm going to be having the A tag, and for the first text that we have there is going to be this home. So let me move this into one side so that I can quickly type them out like that. This thing has been given to us as a text, but for now this is just simple typing. So I'm going to be typing it myself, and as you can see, I'm not putting anything inside href because right now we don't have those pages. So if you just click on them, they will still be referring back to that index.html. But if you have the pages, then you need to pass them inside the href, just like the way we did it here. The same thing here too. I don't even need to put index.html because we are already on the index.html, so it's going to load it directly like that. So the next one that I have is going to be these categories like that. So categories, and once this thing is saved and we go back to the page, we are going to have it, but it will not look like the way we're expecting it to look like. So you can see, but once the CSS started coming in, then everything is going to look like this. But currently we don't have it in the way it's supposed to be like that. So we are not done with the other section. Don't forget, we only focus on the we're only focusing on the desktop right now. But as you can see on mobile, something is here which is not on desktop. So we need to add this item. through our CSS, the one that we need to hide on the mobile will be hidden, and the one that needs to be hidden on desktop is going to be there like that. So we're going to be using CSS to show this one or not show it based on the media query that we're going to be using later on to determine whether the user on small screen or they are on big screen. But right now, after the nav is not part of the nav, there is going to be a button here, because it's something that you are going to be clicking later on. So it's going to be a button, just like the way we have it at the top here, that this is a link, and we now put the image under it. The same thing here too. We have a button that the user will be clicking later on, but it will not work because no JavaScript yet. So we need to go into assets once again, images, and at the same time we have the icon menu. As you can see, the icons are here. This is the one for the close, and this is the one for that menu there like that. But if it's not showing, I just want to show this text menu like that. And once this thing is saved and we go back to the page, as you can see, all of them are showing. But through CSS later on desktop, we are not going to see it. It's only on mobile that is going to show it. Right now we are just dealing with the structure. The CSS will be the one that will handle which element is going to show and which one is not going to appear on the screen. And right now we are done with the header section. So right now we are done with the header section. So we want to go into the major area of the site. So we want to go into the major area of the site. And what is the major area? Is this entire box here. So if you look at it, this is the entire thing. But here too, this one is subdivided into two parts. So this one too is subdivided into two parts. We have this part here. Why? Because they are side by side. And again, we have another part which have its own pattern. And that's the reason why they are being separated. So the reason we are separating them, because the way we are going to apply things here is not the same thing we are going to apply it here. Like that. So if you look at this one, the way they are placed is not the same thing the way it's placed here, because this one is taking like 3 times of whatever this one is going to take. But if you look at all this one down here, they are taking equal space. So the space you have here is what you have for the second one, and is what you have for the third one. But if you look at this one here, they are not the same. So this one is taking like 3 times of whatever this one on the right side is taking. So we need to separate them so that we'll be able to talk to them separately like that. So this is what we need to have first, like that. So we need to have the container that is going to contain everything like that, and we are going to be using main for that. So we are done with the header group. So we need to go after this header and type our main. So that is the line, or this is the one that is going to group all the content together. But inside it, we have 2 sections. That section at the top and that one at the bottom. So I'm going to be using this one, which I'm going to give it a class right now, which is going to be the, let's just say, top like this. And for this one, so I'm going to give it a class so that we can quickly select them from CSS later on. So what can we give to this one? And as you can see, it looks like this is just a feature of that site. So yeah, I'm going to give it a feature, but you can call it anything you want like that. So yeah, I'm calling this one top because I don't know the name to represent it right now, but it's still going to work because it doesn't care like that. And as you can see, we have this top section and we have the feature section. And inside this top section, so we are at the top now. So let me bring out my pen again. So we are now dealing with this. So we are focusing on this now. So we are focusing on this. And if you look at it, this is another container that is here, which is that section that we are calling top. So this is what I'm calling top, and this is what I'm calling features. And the one that is grouping the two of them together is what that main element is all about. But right now, I want to focus on this top section. So if you look at this top section, we have 2 nested sections inside it too. So we have this section here, which is one that is holding all this content, and we have another section here, which is the one that is holding this content. So we need to create these 2 sections like that inside that top one. So I will go back again. So what can we use here? So I'm going to be using div, and I'm going to call it the left content like this. So I'm giving it the class of left content like that. So that's one on the left, and at the same time for the one on the right, I'm going to be giving it the right content. You can name it anything you want, but it's always good that you use a descriptive name. Through the name of the class, you already know what is going on, but there is nothing stopping you from naming this one X calling this one Y, calling this one Z, and calling this one A. All of them will work, but they don't make sense. Like, they are not making sense at all. That's why I'm doing things in a professional way, like that. Just because they work doesn't mean that's the right way to do the stuff. So under the left now, let's focus on the left, because we are going to be picking them one by one so that it will be easier for us, like that. So we know that we already have the left and the right content, but now we want to focus only on this. So if you look at that left too, there's a lot of things going on inside it. We have the image at the top there. So, and again, we have this container inside it, which is holding these two together. So let's create that one too, like that, because I want us to be going over them one by one, and we fix them like that, so that it will be easier for us to work with. So inside this left, don't forget we are going to be having that image at the top, and after the image, so I'm going to be having this text here. So I'm going to call this one left content bottom, like this. And why am I calling it bottom? Because it's at the bottom of the left. So I'm calling it this, or instead of me calling this one, let me just say or let me leave it like that. So left content bottom in this way. And which one am I calling the left bottom? This is the down one here. So this is what I'm calling the left. So this is what I'm calling this group. And inside that group, as you can see, we have this text here. And apart from text, this is another group again, because there are two contents and they are not side by side here. So you need to group them so that you'll be able to control this one without affecting any other one. So this is what I'm calling the left button. So inside that one too, we now have our major title there. So inside it, we have our major title, which I'm going to be using H1. And what is the content that is there? I'm not going to be typing that one myself. So I'll go back into the project, because every project we are working with, all the necessary text that you need, they are part of the index.html that is given to you. So we can just drag this in into our VS Code, and from there we'll be able to see all the text that we want to use. So I will just copy this text here like that, go back to the page and paste it. Then we have this side, but again we need to create this container that is going to hold this text and the button that is inside it. So after this H1, we need to have another div, and here I'm going to be calling it this right content, like that. So the right content, but you know, we're going to look at it, there's another right content here, so there's going to be a problem later on. So in order for us not to have too much of a problem, let's just do left content like this. So but I don't want to use too much of a long name, so I'm just to do bottom right. So bottom content right, like this. So this one is making sense. And inside this place, we are going to have p tag. So we are going to be having p tag. As you can see, we have paragraph and we have read more. So this read more, this one is not link. Is a this one is not button. Is a link, because when you click on it, it will take you to a page where you are going to read more about the news. So since it's going to be a link, then we need to use a tag, not button. Even though it's styled like button, but that's going to come from the CSS. So we are going to be using the correct tag. You can use button, but you are going to be doing too much of work in order for you to be able to move user from one place to another, which require JavaScript. But instead of using JavaScript, you can use the corresponding tag, which is going to be the a tag, like that. So I'm going to put the a tag here in that way. And again, I'm going to give it a class, because I think that's the only place it's being used. Don't let me give it any class, since it's not being used again in another place. And here we are going to have this read more. I know that read more is in capital letter, but we are going to be doing that from CSS. So that's why I'm typing it like this. But if you want, you can type it directly in uppercase like this. But since I want to do it from the CSS, that's why I type it in that way, so that we can apply the property. But if you want, you can just type the stuff directly from the HTML there. And now we are briefly done with this part, but still not done because I've not put this image. So let me go back to the code and quickly put the image there. So go back inside the asset again, images like that. And what was this? So as I don't, what was the text? I should be let me see, images, gaming growth. Let me check the page and see the one that is corresponding to that. So this is reviving, this is the laptop, this is the growth. growth of gaming. So 1, 2, 3. So let me go back to, so we have the gaming growth, retro. Okay, we are okay. This is it here. So as you can see, there are two images. There is one for desktop and there is one for mobile. So which means we need to include the two. But through our CSS, we are going to hide one based on whether we are on mobile or desktop. And I'm going to give it a class so that it's going to be easier for us to select. So I'm going to give this one desktop, and for this down one here, I'm going to give it a mobile like that. And I need to change the image. So let me move this into down because it started growing up like that. So I don't want this thing to be growing left and right. So you can go to the view and you scroll down. So you see this word wrap. It will make sure that all your word that is trying to go outside of the screen are wrapping to the next line. So they won't be going outside of the screen. So we need to change this one to mobile like that. But the two of them will be showing right now. So let me save and go back to the screen. As you can see, the two of them are showing. But later on, when we are dealing with the CSS, we only show this one on desktop and we only show this one on mobile. But right now, HTML cannot do that. So you have to do that through the CSS. But right now, we are just dealing with the layout of our HTML. So we are done with that section. What we need to do now is to focus on this section. So this is the section that we need to focus on next. Like that. So this section is what we need to focus on next. And we already create a container for that. So let me go back to the code once again. So let me go back to the code once again. So let me collapse this section, which is this top, not top, this left. So inside this write content, that's where we are going to be working on for that container. So this is a container that is going to hold everything that is here. And what do we need to do here? So again, let's draw our line there. So that container is this. So this is the entire container. And inside this container, as you can see, at the top, we have the heading. Then after the heading, we now have the list. So we have the heading inside the container, and at the same time, we now have the list where you have your li. So this is your the first li like that. This is the second li, and this is going to be the third li, and so forth like that, depending on the number of items you have there. So let's create this. So let's put this container, or let's put this structure in our code. So inside this place, I told you that we're going to be having header, and since this is not our major header, that's why I'm using h2 here, and the text there is going to be this new. And after that, we need to have our list. So I'm using on order list here because the thing is not all we can use. Yeah, I'm using order list here because it's looking like a order list, like the first one, the second one, and the third one. But we're going to remove that number that is going to be showing because, as you can see here, on the actual design, those things are not showing. So we're going to remove them. So inside this OL, we're going to have our li. But if you look at the li too, it's not that simple. The li is not just one content that is inside it. So if you look at the li, it have the title. So this is the li. But inside the li, we have the title and we have the paragraph for each one of them. So we need to have, so that our li now is going to act as the container, and inside it we are going to be having this h3, which I'm using for the title. So let me go back to that place and get the text. So this is the text for that particular side. So I'm going to paste this one inside it, and after this one we are going to have our paragraph, which is going to be this next text that follows it, and that's what is going to be done for the other one. So we just need to duplicate it and replicate the same thing for the other. So I'm going to duplicate it for the second item like that. So go back into the code or into this side, copy the text like this, replace it with the second one like that. Go back again, get the contents that we need like that, and replace what is here. So paste again, duplicate that the entire list, the li rather. So copy the text that's supposed to be there in that way, and we replace the title. So we replace the title, and at the same time we replace the text that's supposed to be there. So here, copy it and paste, and then save. Everything will still not look like the way we want, but we have our structure already. As you can see, it's showing this 1 2 3 right now, But once you started styling it, we are going to remove it. So in CSS, there is a way of changing it to another thing you want, or even remove it entirely, which is what we are going to be doing. We are going to remove it, but by default, HTML is going to add this item, but we are going to be removing it once we enter the CSS part. So we are done with that top section now. So we are done with everything that we need for that top section. So we've worked on the left side, we worked on the right side. So we worked on this left side and we work on this right side. So what we need to focus on now is this part here, which is the same thing as this one is even simple because it's just one item. We just duplicate it for the other one. So for this now, we've already created the container for this one too. So the container is going to be like this, but inside this container we are going to be having a nested container because there are multiple items here. It's not just one, and inside that container too, as you can see here, is group. So you are going to be having the image on the left, and on the right there is going to be a container, and inside that container, that's where you are going to be. I will show you, it's just a shortcut. So, and from there you are going to have this, and at the same time you are going to have this. That is just a shortcut that I used with this shift alt arrow down or up. So when you want to duplicate anything in VS Code, just highlight what you want to duplicate like that, then hold down the shift key and the alt key, then your arrow down or arrow up. So if you use arrow up, it will duplicate up. If you use arrow down, then it will duplicate it down like that. So which is going to be this, where is it? So you have the alt, then plus the shift like that. So the shift key, then plus arrow up, or the pipe here means or. So or let me put all this one in brackets. I want to type this in this chart. So I'm typing from the other screen, or arrow down, depending on where you want to duplicate the stuff to, like that. So yeah, so this is what you are going to use: alt key plus shift key, then plus arrow up or arrow down, depending on where you want to duplicate the stuff to, so that you don't need to start creating it again and again and again, since they are the same structure. So this is where we have, so these features now is what we want to work on, and as you can see, inside the feature we have each one of the feature there. So this is one of the feature, and it's still the same thing for this second one and the third one. You just need to duplicate them like that. So we have this, and let's put them in there in our code. So let me go back into the code, or let me even leave the structure like this and go back to the code. So as you can see, this is what we need to have. So inside it, we need to have each one of the feature. Please look at the one. Oh, this one at the top is having S, but this one down here is not having S. So the one with S is a grouping, while the one that is not having S is each item that is inside it. But inside each feature, we are going to be having image on the left side, which is this box here. Then after that, we are going to be having another content there. So we are going to be having content, and inside the content, you have the number at the top. So inside the content, we have the number, we have the title, and we have the paragraph that is going to be there. So for the heading, I'm going to be using span for that one, which is going to be 01. Then after the 01, I'm going to have H4 like that, because it's just small heading, it's not the major heading layer. So I'm going to go back into where we have this thing. So copy the text, which is going to be this retro like that. So paste the text. Then after that text, we're going to be having paragraph like that. And then going back to that place again, get the text for the paragraph. Then paste the stuff like this. So let me close this in because I already have it. Then inside this place, we need to get the corresponding this thing. So assets, so the images, and the name always follow the name of the title. As you can see, this one is reviving, so that means your image too is going to contain that word. As you can see, we have this retro like that. So since retro is here, it means the image we need to load is retro. But what if this thing is not showing? So I'm just going to put that alt text like that, and we have one of our feature. So we have one of our feature, but we need to duplicate it for the second feature and the third feature, and we'll replace the content. So I'm going to duplicate it down by using the same shortcut there like that. So open it up, then change the image to the title of the second item. So the second one is laptop. So that means since the title is containing laptop, that image too is going to contain laptop. So let me just remove this and press enter again. As you can see, this is the image we need. This one is going to be 02, and the title is going to be this, my title here. Then going back to that place, pick the text for the paragraph, then replace it with what we have here like that. Something is wrong. Let me paste it correctly. So paste like this. And lastly, for the third one, so let me duplicate it again. Let me even space them so that so for this one is going to be 03 like that. Go back to the page. So this one is going to be having growth as part of the stuff there. So replace the content of the title again for the image like that. This one is going to be growth, and for the text is going to be what we have down here. So it's going to be what we have down here. So remove this and we paste it in our code, and now we are done with the HTML part. But everything is not looking like what we have. As you can see, everything is not looking like the design. But now we need to start applying our CSS so that everything can look like what we have here on desktop, and it's going to look like this on mobile there like that. So we need to do this, and how do we do it? We need to start connecting our CSS. First, we need to connect our CSS, and as you can see, all these things, I'm going to collapse them so that we are going to be opening them one by one, and I'll start applying CSS on them. So the way we arrange it here, that's the same way we are going to be going inside each one of them one by one and apply the necessary CSS. And those ones that are having the same classes, all of them will just work at once since they are having the same class like that. So we need to connect our CSS. So we need to do the way we normally do, which is going to be this link with the CSS. And since the same name is what we have there, then I don't need to change anything like that. So I don't need this file again because we already copied all the content we need from it. So I will just close that one. Then I'll be left with our index.html and the style.css like that. Nothing is going to happen yet because we've not done anything at all in our CSS. But let's do first thing that you are supposed to be always do when you are dealing with your CSS by selecting everything we have on the page. We remove all the padding. We don't want any padding. We don't want any margin. Anywhere we need them, we are going to be adding it by ourselves. And at the same time, we need to change our box sizing to border box so that when we are calculating the width and the padding later on, it will not be creating unnecessary spacing for the content. So it is going to be this. So once I save this one now, we start having a small change. So we should have a small change now. As you can see, all those spacing has been removed. All the content are now jam-packed together. The next thing we need to do is to set up our fonts. And since I want to use the same font for everything, so I'm going to move this thing down. And why do I need to move it down? Because we want to load our local font. Normally, if you want to load Google font, what you just need to do, get the link from Google and you paste it here. Then from there, you pass it here as a font family. But right now, the font we want to use is part of our project, which is under assets and it's under this font. So how do we connect to this local variable or this local font, not the online one there like that? So that's where this another CSS art rule comes in. So what do I mean by art rules? They call the art rule. They are known as art rule. And why are they art rule? They always start with this art. So that's the reason why what's wrong with my keyboard? Let me change this thing back. It has changed to something else. So we call it this art rule. As you can see, that media query we used to use is one of the art rule because they are rules. You are giving it a rules to follow before you do something. The rules here is that it must be screened. The media must be screened. Again, too, when you want to connect to a local font, you can use the art rule that is meant for that to talk to CSS on where to get the font that you are using in your project. And we call this one at font face. So this at font face rule is where you can define the rules for the CSS on how to locate whatever naming that you are using for font family here. So anytime you mention this font family, this is where it is going to locate that font. So this is what Google is doing for you behind the scene. Anytime you connect to Google Font, this is what it's doing for us behind the scene. So instead of us doing it by ourselves, once we connect to Google, it will do all this font face whatever stuff for us out of the box. Our own is just to connect to that link and it will download and do the necessary stuff. But now we already have the font, so the Google is done what we are using now. So we need to do that magic by ourselves. And what do you need to put here? Whatever name that you want to use in your project later on for that font is what you are going to put here. So if you put X, so which means anywhere you want to use it in your project, that's the name you are going to use as your font family. This one you are defining the rule, and here this is where you are going to be using the value. So in your selector, you are going to be using the value. So here now you can now say X. So anywhere this is CX, it will check it. Where do you have this font face rule defined? If you connect to Google, it will be happening behind the scene for us there. But since we are going to be doing it, so we need to specify the stuff here. But I'm not going to be using this X as the name of the family because that doesn't make sense. Look at the font we are using. The name is Inter. So there is no, it's not making sense that I'm using that particular name. So here I'm going to be calling it Inter. So anywhere that I use Inter as font family, it will come here and look for the font wherever you pass here. It's just like you are connecting to image. So the same thing here too. It follows the same pattern that we are used to. So inside the asset, we have the font, and that's where it's going to locate this particular file. But the naming that this thing is, I don't like any illegal name in my variable. So I'm going to rename it. So I'm going to rename this font because I don't like that name. Their name can cause problem when you deploy the project later on. All this comma that is here, I don't like. As you can see that it escape it. That's in the name, there is no slash. But when we are inputting it, it's putting slash because that name is illegal. You cannot use comma. That's why it's escaping it. And that's why I want to rename it to a name that is more better there. So I'm just going to call it this Inter font like that with underscore. Underscore is valid. So here I'm going to remove it and then put it. Can you see that there is no slash again because I'm using a valid name. Once you have anything that is not valid here, it needs to escape it so that the browser will not interpret it incorrectly. But me, I don't like to do that. I always want to use a name that is always going to be available on every system. Not that when you now put it in the browser later on, the thing is not showing correctly. So I always love to use a name. And that's the same thing I follow with the naming of my project or any of the file like that. And I'm going to learn more about this naming convention when we get to JavaScript because that one is more strict compared to all this one. So here now, instead of using X, we just need to use Enter. And again, what if it's not loading or what is still loading? So we need to always give a backup. And I know that this Enter is coming from sans serif like that. What's wrong with VS Code? Because I know that it's coming from sans serif. So while this thing is still loading the font, just use this one as backup instead of using that dummy one that the browser used to use. So once this thing is back, just switch into what we want like that. So as you can see here, there's some other thing you can pass here, and you can even define multiple font face for different weights. But for now, since this one is including all of them, we don't need to specify any weight at all. Here you can actually specify the font weight that this font will be used for, because these are rules. So if I put 100 now here, what this means is that it will only load this font here. It will only load everything here if we mention font weight of 100. But if you don't put it, it's always going to load it for all of them, which is what I want, because this intern font already include all the weights. But if the one you have is just for a particular weight, you might need to specify the weight that is going to load for, because if you don't specify it, it will load for all the weights that you are going to be using in your project like that. And once you go back to the page, as you can see now, all the text has changed to that our font like that we want to use. And now we are not loading it from Google. We have it already in our project, and it's going to download it directly from the project, not that it have to go to Google to download the font like that. We have it as a project, and you can replace it anytime you want. Not that Google is in control. Google is not in control anything we are doing here. So now the next thing we need to set up is going to be our variable, because the project we want to work on here, I don't want to be typing the colors one by one, or any of the variable or any of the value that I need to use in different places. So here we are going to be setting variables for our colors, because if you look at the project we want to work with, you see that some of these colors, they are reused. So the color that is here like that, you see the same thing here, you see the same thing here like that. So most of the color are being reused in different places, and we don't want to start typing it by ourselves one by one. Look at the color here. To me, it's still the same thing as what is kind of might not be, but it looks like they are still the same thing there like that. The text at the background here is a text for this one at this place like that, and this is too is even showing us the over state. So if I go back to the other, so this button is actually going to, can you see that it changed to that background when you are over on it? And again, to look at this text, and this thing is telling us is a link. That means this is a link. So this thing is telling us is a link that once you click on it, it's supposed to show as a link. So all those titles that I was using this thing for before, normally it's supposed to be linked based on what I'm saying there now, but I'm going to leave it, and we're going to add that feature. So all this let me see, all this H4 are supposed to be, so let me look for all of them and just convert it to a tag. No, let me leave it, because we don't have time for that. But normally, based on what this thing is saying now, and that's why it is always good that you check everything. So as I'm checking this overstate now, you can see it's showing that this is a link. It's something that you click on and it will take you to another page, because that's why it's showing this and just like the way it is here. So when you over on this button, this is the style it's going to show. And as you can see, all this color, they are being reused. The same color we have here before is what is now here now. Like that. And it's still the same color here. So this same color here is what is here. And you don't want to be copying all the same every time you need them, because it can change. You just need to make the changes in one place. And that's the reason why we need our variables set up there in our CSS. And in order for you to set up the variable so that it's going to be reused across all your selector, it's always good that you put it inside this root. So root is the same thing as HTML that I typed before, like that. So if you use HTML here or you type root, it's still the same thing in HTML like that. But I'm going to be using roots for now, and you define all the variables. So where are the variables going to be coming from? So let me go back into this and this style guide, and let me open it in VS Code. And as you can see, all the colors, we have the soft orange, we have the soft red, and we have this other color like that. So I'm going to copy all of them, and I will convert them to variable. So I will convert them to variables here. And how do you convert them to variable? Your variable needs to start with double the double hyphen like that. Again, anywhere you have any other space, you should bridge it with this space or or hyphen like that. But I'm going to be using hyphen to close the stuff so that it follows the same pattern. Or if you want, just close the word. But I always love to separate word so that it will be easier to read like that. So I always love to separate words. So this off-white, so again too, I'm going to convert it to variable, double hyphen like that, and you close it in this way. So again to this one too, double hyphen, then again here too, close the gap like that. So for this one too, I'm going to convert it to variable. Anywhere there is space, put a hyphen there to bridge. Then for this one too, double hyphen, this one close, and you close. And now in our project, we have all the colors. If there's some other value too that you know that you are reusing, you can define here as your variable. For example, if I'm using a padding that is common, maybe for example, I have the same padding for the heading. I can just call it there heading padding or padding heading, depending on the name you want to use. And here I will just put one rem. So anywhere that I need this padding, this is what I just call. And once I need to change it, this is where I will just come change it at once, and whenever I'm using it, is going to update everything. But we don't want to create variable, because this one itself, it can take a lot of time on its own, because you have to check around, look at the padding, what are the values, where are they being used, is it being reused anywhere, and so forth like that. So we don't want to waste time on this. But when you are working in a real sense, these are the things you need to do. And that's the reason why that when you are developing a site, it's not something you just create in one day. depending on the complexity of the site. When you want to make something to be standard and a professional way, you have to define things in a way that you are not going to repeat yourself, and when you want to make changes, it's going to be easier for you to change. But right now we don't care about that because we are not going to be changing anything about this. This is just a learning stuff like that. So I'm going to stop here for the variables like that. And the next thing we need to do is to talk about our body like that. And if you look at the body, nothing wrong with the body, it's just a plain white stuff. So which means you don't even need to do anything with the body like that. So everything is already perfect. So but first you need to use the width should be 100%. So we know that it's going to be 100%, but we still want to make sure it's there. And again, too, the max width should be 100%. Nothing should go more than whatever that is there. And again, overflow x, because we don't want anything to go on the x-axis, because this thing will happen later on when this menu is back later on. So when this menu is back later on, when you close it, as you can see, when you close it, the menu is not showing, but it's hidden somewhere by the left or by the right. Because since it stick to the right, it's hidden somewhere here on the right, but you are not seeing it. Why? Because the body has already cut out anything that is going outside of it, and it's because of this overflow. If you don't do it, if you move it to the side, the body is still going to show it like that. But right now we need to use overflow x hidden, so that anything that is outside of it, we don't want to show it at all. It's only when it is inside that is going to show, or when we need it. And again too, the minimum height should always be 100 VH, because we want, if the content, we know that our content is already much, so it's even bigger than the screen. So but this thing should always be there. These are just basic settings that you always do, just like the way we have it at the top here. So they are basic settings you always do. So these are basic settings you do. And if there is background, you are going to put the background there. But right now we don't really have any background there. And at the same time, yeah, we just need to start going inside our header and the main here. So for this header here, I need to display it as flex like that. Once I display it as flex, those things that are on top of, can you see now, they are now side by side. But we need to move everything here to the right side. So we need to move everything after the logo. And on the desktop, we don't want to show this one. On the mobile, we don't want to show all this one. So, and I told you, when you are dealing with your design, we have different modes. You have the mobile design first. That means you are designing for the mobile first. That means everything you are going to be doing, you are assuming is mobile. Then you can now scale it up later on using media query. Or instead of you doing that, you can start with desktop. That means like this one now. You start designing with desktop, then later on you scale it down. But I told you, scaling down is hard compared to scaling up. So because of that, I'm going to enter responsive mode like that by using the Ctrl+Shift+I to open the dev tools on the browser. And from there, we can toggle our device emulator. And from here, you can emulate any device that you want. So I'm going to go down to 375. And as you can see a lot of things going outside. But once we started applying our CSS, they are not going to go outside at all like that. So the content is going outside inside this head or inside that main. But once we go to the main later on, and you tell it that we don't want that to show, because as you can see on mobile, we're not supposed to be seeing this one. This is the one we're supposed to see like that. And the same thing to at the menu, because the menu cannot contain the mobile stuff. And again, why am I using 375 is because of the design. So this is what, if you look at the style guide again, if you look at the top, can you see the mobile design was done on this? But that doesn't mean it should not work for the one that is less. Why the desktop design was done on this screen? But that doesn't mean every screen in between this one too will not work. But the actual design you are looking at for the desktop is for this screen, and the actual design you are looking for the mobile is for this screen. But that doesn't mean your design should not work for other screens. So you have to make sure that it still looks nice, and that's why we call it responsive like that. Assuming you are working with a proper designer there, or we are not using the free version there, you are going to see the tablet here too. The tablet design will be given to you, because those are the major three range. Because it's always range, not that they will be giving you each screen size. No, it's always range of value. So you have the mobile range, you have the tablet range, and you have the desktop or the laptop range like that. But for now, this one is only giving us the two, but we need to work for other one that is in between. So which means we need to tweak our CSS when we are doing some stuff and they are not looking nice on some other screen like that. So we need to target some other screen size. So I'll go back into the code. So here we need to align them to center, which means vertically we want to be center, and justify content is going to be space between, just like what I mentioned before, like that. Again, if there is no space, I want to give it a gap of around these two rem, which I know there is going to be space in between them later on once we remove this stuff. And once this thing get to the page, we should have our code, and I'm not seeing anything there like that. Why am I not seeing anything? Is because of this image. It has worked, but because of this image that is showing there is not working yet. So but first, in order for us to see this thing clearly, I'm going to hide this main. So what I'm just going to do is display none, because we are not there yet. So when we get there, I'm going to bring it back. So I'm going to display none so that it's not showing at all. So once you display as none, it should disappear, and as you can see that the thing is working. But because that image was too big, and that's the reason why we need to even do this. Instead of you disable it like this, there is setting for the image that I've talked about too that you need to do like that. So let me reload the stuff. As you can see, it has cut it out, but I don't want them to use their original size. I want them to be based on their parent. So there's another setting I told you that we normally do, which I forgot to do here, which is going to be max width. So all your image by default, they used to expand anyhow, but we don't want them to expand more than where they are being used. So once I use max width of 100, this thing, can you see now? So it will adjust it so that it's not going outside of the screen again. So that's one way of solving the issue. The image can still expand, but it will not expand more than wherever you put it. And where do we put it? We put it inside the main. And where the main stop, that's where it's going to stop. But if you don't put this one, by default, all the image, they are going to use their original width. And if you check that image, it's quite bigger than the screen that I'm working on right now. And that's the reason why it looks like it is big. As you can see, it's big like that. But I don't want it to just getting bigger anyhow. So that I'm using max width of 100%. So that wherever the container is placed, that's what it's going to use. What's wrong with this stuff? As you can see, that's where it's going to. It doesn't expand. It will expand according to its size. But once it's bigger than the container where it's being used, it will stop at that place. It will make sure it stop at that place. Like that. So let me enter the responsive again. Go back to the small the screen we're working with, which is this one here, like that. So what do we need to do? We need to hide all this one. So how do we hide them? So let's go down. We know that inside the header, or we only have one nav. So let me just select it like this. And what do we need to do? We just need to do display none, because we are assuming that we are working on mobile. So we are going to display none. But this is not the way we're supposed to do it, assuming we have JavaScript. But because we don't have JavaScript right now, I'm just removing it on the mobile entirely. But we're supposed to position it outside of the screen. Then when the button is clicked, then it's not going to, this is what's supposed to happen. This is how it's going to be on mobile. But because we don't have it yet, so that's why I'm skipping it. And I'm going to be using it later on to explain this particular stuff. I'm going to be using it to explain positioning. As you can see now, look at the way it's being positioned. See that the position is different when you are on mobile. So this is where it is on desktop. But when you get to mobile, look at where it's being positioned. So it's not that you are going to create another element. It's still that same element, but you are going to position it to another place, which I've not really talked about that positioning property. But I'm going to be using this to talk about it later on. But right now we don't need it, so I'm going to skip it and we focus on what we've known already like that. So I'm displaying it on, but on desktop, I'm going to bring it back and it's going to be at the right position there like that. And once I go back to the page, as you can see, it's no more there. We now have this particular stuff. And if you look at it, this our header here is not having the breathing space that we have here. If you look at it on mobile, you see that there is a breathing space for all our content. The same breathing space that you have in the header is still the same thing that you have for the main. So as you can see, the same breathing space is what we have there. So instead of us talking to the header and the main separately, what we can do here is to create utility class. So what is utility class? They are classes that you can reuse in different places. That's what we call utility class. And I'm going to be calling it container here. And why am I calling it container? Because I'll be able to use it on the header, and at the same time, I'm going to be using it on the main. And if you don't want to do it like that, you can put the code under the main and you still put the code under header. So that means you are repeating yourself. And anytime you need to make changes, you change it on the header and you still go to the main to make the changes. But with this, I can just create a single class, which is this container, then go into my code like that. So this main, what I will just do is to give it this class container, and that same header too, I'm going to give it this class container. So which means whatever that is happening with this container is going to affect the header, and at the same time is going to affect the main at once. So when you have something that you are doing in different places again and again, just create a class and give those elements, which is the same thing that we did here, which is the same thing we are doing for all these feature here, like that. If you look at it, we have different feature, but this is one, this is one, this is one, but they have the same class. So once I style this one, it will affect this, it will affect this, and it will affect this. And that's the same thing that I'm doing here with the main. But I'm creating it, I'm giving it a name container. Why am I calling it container? Because it's containing everything here. For this one, and for the other two, it's containing everything here. That's why I'm naming it container. The naming can be anything you want. It doesn't need to be container. But that's the convention that we normally follow. Anytime you have something that is grouping things together, we call it container. But you can name it anything you want. So since I have this, now let me save my code. And coming to this, I can see I put it at the top. Why did I put it at the top? Because they are generic setting. The same thing as this image is generic setting. It's affecting all the images on the screen. But any specific setting are going to be coming down where they are being used. So it's affecting all these images. That's why they are up. Any generic setting will be up, and any specific setting are going to be down near their selector like that. But anything generic should always be at the top, so that you can modify it later on in case you need to change anything. If I want to change that container based on header now, I can just come here and say main the container. So here now, I only want to change this in when it contains this. So this container we only change if it is on the main, not the one that is on the header. But the generic one is at the top here. So that's how you'll be doing things like that. So at the top, what do we want to do? We want the width to be 100% by default, like that. So we want the width to be 100% by default. But if you look at it, the width is not going past a specific stuff like that. So can you see that it did not really cover that entire 1440. It stopped around that maybe 1200 or so, like that. Because I'm using small screen to share, like to take this class, we might not see it clearly, but I'm going to emulate it so that you look at how it is. But the actual screen is not up to what is showing here, because the design, as you can see here, is meant for 1440, but my screen is not even up to that. My screen is 1300 like this. So, but the value I'll be using will not even be up to that, but it's still going to work. So what we want to do here is that we know that this thing can take 100% too, but once you go past a screen that is more than 1200, the maximum is going to be this 1200 like that. And in order for this thing to be center, in order for everything to be center, we need to use margin inline. And what is margin inline? That's your margin left and right like that. And we're going to put it as auto. Don't forget, if the screen is bigger than 1200, there is going to be a lot of space left. Let me even disable it so that you can see how it works. So now, let me remove this thing so that you can see like that. I told you my screen is not up to that yet, like that. So let me just reduce this thing. Can you see what is now happening? Can you see that everything stop at 1200? So let me remove that container. So this mark to it. So if I remove this mark to it, everything will expand according to the screen you have. As you can see, it will expand according to the screen that you have like that. But if the screen is now bigger than 1200, we want the things to stop here. But once you stop here, as you can see, it's putting the remaining space on the left. But according to the design, the space is supposed to be distributed between left and right, and the content will go to the center. So in order for you to be able to do that, you need to do this margin inline auto. Anytime you limit a container and you want the container to move to the center of its entire content there, to the center, then you need to use this margin inline auto. What you are saying here is that the spacing that is left on that right space should be distributed into two, shared by the left and right, and it's going to be equal. The browser will figure out everything. It will share that spacing, take the half to the left, and the remaining half will be on the right, so that the content will now be at the center, as you can see now. And as you can see, it's affecting all of them. Why? because I'm using the container on the header and I'm using the container on the main. And since other content are part of that group, everything is going to happen to all of them like that. Another thing that we need to do under this header, so let me, or this body, let me just display it as flex. Flex direction is going to be column like that. And why do I need to do this? If you look at this header now, as you can see, this header and this main, there's a bit of gapping in between them. The same thing too on mobile. As you can see, there's a space, and that's the reason why I'm creating this in here, because if you look at it, our own design, can you see that they are jam packed together? So since all of them are inside the body, that's why I'm displaying this body as flex, and I'm changing direction to column. And based on this now, I'll be able to apply the gap. So on the small screen, because we are assuming that we are on small screen, I want the gap to be 2 rem, which is 32 pixels like that. So as you can see now, that spacing is going to be there, but that spacing is not for desktop, it's just for mobile like that. So let me go back into mobile, and as you can see, there is no breathing space at all, because this is 100%. We said it's going to be 100% by default. Yeah, it's only when it get to a bigger screen that spacing will be there. But if it's not bigger than 1200, which is the small screen is not up to that, so we need to apply padding. So here on small screen, I'm going to be applying the padding of 1 rem here like that. So once this one is saved, you see that we have breathing space around. But on the big screen, I'm going to remove that padding because we already have the spacing already. So there's no need of having padding. But right now, we are just assuming that everything we are doing here is all about mobile. Later on, when we are done with the mobile, then we are now going to use our media query then to scale everything up. So here we are going to be doing media screen and main width of 768 pixels, as you can see here now. So let me just do one of them. So that container now, yeah, maybe I want to change something. I can do anything I want to do with it. Again too, if there's anything I need to do for a bigger screen, we just need to duplicate this and update the media query. So 1024, I want something to happen like that. Again too, when I get to 1280 like this, I want to do something and so forth. So you keep creating media query to scale. As you can see, the way it's moving is moving from the small all the way to the big, because we are scaling up. So we are starting from the small. This one we are assuming is for everything. Then anytime you need to change anything for other screen, then we create the media query for that. If something that we're doing here too is not okay on this 1024, then we create another media query to adjust what we need here. Then if something is not okay too for a bigger screen, we create another media query. But if you look at it, I'm not just creating all this value anyhow. They are based on the most used screen size that we have. They are always in a range. All your tablets start from here all the way to this side. So that's the tablet. Then all the laptops start from here all the way to here. While from here upward, that's your large laptop. So small laptop like the one I'm using to share this thing now, start from here. But the others laptop that I'm using, that one, the screen is 1920. So it's a large laptop screen. But the one I'm using to record it like right now is within this range. But that one now is above this range. So whatever you do here now, it will affect this and any of those base screen. And that's the reason why, as a developer, you need to be able to emulate, because you are not going to have all this screen available with you. So you need to be able to emulate different kinds of screen. As you can see what this thing is designed for, like that. So if I go to 1440, can you see that thing is looking like the original design? Because we are trying to emulate the screen that the design was for. Can you see that it looks like that design? Like that. So this is how things work. But even though it's not showing you 100%, it's only giving you 70% view. But you can still see how it's going to look like that on that screen, even though we don't have that screen yet. But we'll still see how it's going to look like on that screen. But I'm going to go back to the mobile, and that's padding that I add here. I think this our gap. Where is the gap that I add? Okay, I think this padding, because I've already had this gap here, so I might not even need to apply this gap from here since I'm doing it from the container already. So the padding is here on the container. Let's just remove it from there so that it will not be too much like this. So the next thing we need to do, let me style this my button there like that. And again, we On the desktop, we are going to be bringing our header back, and we hide this one, and that's where we are going to stop in this class there, like that. In the next class, we are going to be focusing on this part and this other part, because I don't want to rush. I don't want to add too much of things on this video. So yeah, so let me just go back into that place. So after the nav, we have our button, but that button is inside the header, and I think that's the only button we have. So since it's the only button we have, I'm just going to target it through the name. But assuming it's not the same, like you have multiple buttons, you need to target it through the class or the ID or any other selector, so that it doesn't affect any other thing on the page. So here, the background color is going to be transparent, like the border, as you can see here now. All this thing, can you see there is a background at the back of that icon? Because by default, all your buttons used to have background like that, but I don't want it, and that's why I'm turning it off. Again too, it's not showing that it's something that is, can you see, the pointer is not there. When you go to a link, look at the way the pointer, look at the link is showing. The hand is different. That's the same hand that we're supposed to have on the button, but that's not what the browser is using, or that's not what the HTML is using by default. So we need to change that hand, and that's where this pointer comes in. And once this thing is saved, and we'll go back to the page, you see that, can you see now, the only thing we now have is that hamburger menu, and again the hand has changed. So it looks like the way we want it to be, like that. Can you see? It looks like the way we want it to be, and again it's center. If you look at it, this thing is center on this W. Why is it center? Is because of what we did here, this align item. If I don't align item like that, things might not arrange properly on the screen based on the content you have there. But if you want them to align vertically, always make sure that you use this align item, because if there is any other content that is really big, the other one will just stay at the top. It will not go to the center of the one that is bigger there, like that. And now we have this thing done properly on the mobile. But if you go to tablet, as you can see, we have enough screen to pull out that our link. So on the tablet and above, we have enough screen to put our link. So there is no need of us showing this hamburger again. We just need to show our nav. So which means now we can come in into our media query that targets tablet and above. As you can see, it's mean width, not just width. It's mean width. So from here and above. And if you want to target below, then that's going to be max. But that's not what we were doing. We are targeting, we are scaling up. So here now, what do we want to do? So when we get to tablet and above, that our nav that we are hiding before is not going to be blocked. It's going to be flexed, because we want to move all the items that beside it side by side, like that. I'm going to be using this gap. I don't know. Let me disable this here again. I don't want it to be giving me any suggestion. But if you are working, you can be using all this suggestion like that. But since it's training, so we don't need that. I want to be typing it myself. So save this code and go back to the page. You see now it's now coming outside, but we don't want to see this one too. So it's only going to appear on the mobile. So here now we need to target our button, and we are going to do display none. We are doing the reverse of what is happening on the mobile. So this one now is now going to be null. So when you're on mobile, you are going to see the button, but when you are on desktop or when you're on tablet and above, you are not going to see it. What you just see is the link. So when you go to mobile, you see this one, and when you go to tablet and above, then is the link that is going to appear. Logo will always appear for the two screen based on what we have there. So whether you're on mobile or you're on desktop, the logo is always there like that. But what we need to do now is to style this link, because this is not the way it is like that. It's not having this underline, and at the same time the color is not this color like that. And again, there's another setting we normally do for all our A tag that you might need to do. You can see it by default, all the A tag, they don't take their color from the parent. They have their own color. All the A tag on your page always have this their normal blue color, but I don't want it like that. Whatever the color their parent is using, that's what I want them to use by default. So we can do the setting for A tag, and one of the settings here is I don't want that line that is coming. So all the A tag that I'm going to have on the page, I don't want them to be underlined at all. So we can do the generic setting here too by doing this text decoration there, which is going to be none. So we don't want any text decoration. And once I save it now, anywhere we have A on the page, as you can see, none of them will be decorated. See, all this read more too is not there because it's a generic stuff. So it's going to apply to all of them. Another thing is that I don't want this blue color by default. So whatever the parent is using, or if I mention the color, that's what it's going to use. So what we can do here is just to say color inherit. anytime you use inherit as value, what you are saying is that anywhere you are using this element, if the parent set that property, is going to pick the value from that parent. If you don't, so what this inherit means is that anywhere we have our a and we did not set color, whatever the color that its parent is using, that's what is going to do. Just like you're inheriting your parent's property, that's the same thing here too. Like that. So anywhere we define color for any of its parents and the color is not on this a, if the color is not on the a, that means you don't define the color for the a, is going to inherit the color from its parent. By default, the browser set the color to be that blue. That's why you're seeing that blue. But once we change it to this inherit now, since our other content are having the color of black, as you can see, it's now going to be taking the color from its parent. So if you change the color from parent, for example now, if I just go to the body and I say the color should be red, so that your a tag too is going to take that color. It's going to inherit it. Can you see? It's going to pick the red color. I don't need to go to the a to talk to it. But if you don't do this, it will never take it, because the browser is setting the color to blue. As you can see, other texts are taken in, but a don't take from their parent by default. They have their own color, which is this blue. But if you want it to always inherit what you are setting from the parent, then you have to do this generic setting, so that once you make changes from the parent, it's going to affect the a tag too. This is another generic setting that we normally do when you are dealing there. So these are just basic stuff that used to come in there. But when you are using framework later on, all this thing will have been set up for you. You will not be the one that will be doing all this reset yourself. Those frameworks will have already handled, and that's why they are framework. They are there to simplify the process of you building your sites there like that. So instead of you doing a lot of work yourself, this thing is going to handle some parts for you. So I've opened what I'm not supposed to open. What's wrong with this? Okay, yeah, I've closed it. All right, so going back into the code once again, I'm going to leave it like that, then remove this color red, because that's not what is going to be there. And again, our color is always going to be this very dark blue. So I'm going to update the color from the body. You can see all the p tag and everything, they are taking color from the body. So I'm going to set the generic color from here, which is going to be that very dark blue. So all our text by default, all of them will be using this very dark blue color. So if you go back to the page now, all the text have changed. Even though it looks like black, but it's not black. It's using that very dark blue as the color. But any one of them that it needs to update the color, then I will change it. But by default, all of them are going to pick this color by default like that. And I think this 2 rem is too big when you're on this screen. 1 rem should be okay on this screen. But when you go to a bigger screen, can you see now? So when you now go to a bigger screen, that we already display our flex, then we can now change it to 2. So on tablet, that 2 rem is too big, but when you go to a bigger screen, it's actually okay there. So that's why you can say on tablet the gap is going to be 1 rem, but once you go to this screen and above, then it will change the gap to 2 rem, and that's all you'll be doing. As you can see, that gap is small, but once I go to a bigger screen, since we have enough space, then it can be 2. But on that tablet, that 2 is really big for that screen. So that's why I'm reducing it back to 1 like that. And on mobile screen like this, let me quickly touch this one like that. So let me quickly touch this one, and let me go back to the page and give it a class so that it will be easier to work with. As you can see, we have the top section. Okay, we have the top section and we have the left content. So because I want to hide that image because I don't want them to be. So here we have the left. No. Let me check the class once again. It's inside the, okay, we have the top, but I don't want to select since the class is there, so I don't need to be doing too much of work. So the left content, under the left content we have the image there. So the image that is there, or if you don't even want to target it based on the left content, you can come here and give it the image. As you can see, they have their own image. They have the class desktop and they have the class mobile like that. So since we already gave them the class, let's just use that. So I'm going to target the desktop like this, but in order for people to know that it is image that we are talking about, so let me just put it like this so that we know that it is image because the class is not really talking about the image, but it will still work. You don't need to add that img, it will still work. So we want to display none. So when we're on mobile, we don't want to see this one at all like that. So once we go back to the page now, Can you see? It's no more showing. But when we go to desktop, we want to show it and we want to hide this one so that I don't want to be seeing them. So now copy it on this screen, like that. On this screen, what I just want to do, image desktop is going to be blocked, but for the mobile one, so let me target the mobile, then that one is going to be none, like that. So that's what you just be doing. Hide one item, display one item based on the screen. Can you see now? So when we're on mobile, it will show the mobile one. When we're on desktop, it will show the desktop one for the user, like that. But we still have a lot of work to do here. That's just the only thing I want to do right now at that place. And again, this color is not what's supposed to be on that A tag. So let me go back into the nav. So inside the nav, we actually have our A tag. So inside the nav, we have the A. And what do we want to do? We want to change the color for that A alone. And let me scroll up and get the color. And I think it's this dark grayish blue that is there. So let me just type that grayish blue, save, go back to the page, and we should have the color. But don't forget, when you hover on the color, it's supposed to change because of the design that we have here. So let me go back to that over state. Like that, where is the over state? Can you see? So any one of them that is over on, the color changes to this particular color. So let's add it. How can we do that? It's down here. It's simple. So nav A, when it is over, we want the color to be different. And which color do we want to use? We want to use, what's the name of the color? So it is soft red. So the name of the color is soft red, like that. And again, if this thing change later on, we just need to change the color at the top and it will update everywhere we are using this soft red, like that. So if I go back to the page now and over on any one of them, as you can see, it will change the color like this. And this is where I'll be stopping for today. Can you see? So after using my own entire screen, as you can see now, because I told you my screen is 1300, but we want this thing to stop at I think I've returning back to 100%, because my screen is 1300 and we stop at 1200. So the remaining 100 pixels is being distributed by left and right, like that. So this is and I think I did not remove the padding too, so it added padding to it, but I will leave it like that. But in case you need to remove padding, you just talk to it that on desktop you don't want the padding to show. But in the next class, we are going to be working on this container side, because this is not how it's supposed to be, like that. So if you look at it, the container, the main that we have here, we need to put them side by side. So let me even do it right now, but we just know that we'll be focusing on the other part in the descent. So we have the main, so we need to display it as flex, like that. Flex direction, no, on the mobile, they're on top of each other. So we need to make sure that it is column, and the gap is going to be, let's just use 1 rem, which is 16 pixels, like that. But once we get to tablet, like that, so the main now, we want to change the direction to row. So the flex direction is now going to be row, like that. So now if I go to this, can you see they are going to be no. I target the wrong stuff. This one should still remain the same. This is not the one I want to target. What I'm supposed to target is this top section. So I need to target this top, like that. So let me go up. I target the wrong class. So main, inside the main, we have top like this. So display as flex, like this. Just copy everything I have down here, because it's the same thing, like that for that section too. Then get this one, like that. So scroll down to our main here. Main still remain the same thing, like that. So from here, what I just need to do is to change the direction. So flex direction here is going to be row. This is the one that I'm supposed to change, because it's the top, they're inside the top. So now going back to the screen, as you can see now, they are now side by side, but there is no gap. The gap is there, but because of this number stuff, and that's what I'm going to do that generic setting too. This is another generic setting. So anything like OL or UL, I don't want that list to come outside at all. And how can you do that? So we have the list style. So we have the list style. As you can see, this list style is what you can use to determine the type of the style you want for your list. By default, for the OL, is using the decimal, like that. And for every other one, you can mention the lower Roman. So if I change it now, once we go back to the screen, as you can see, it's using lower Roman. But any of my dicing, I don't want anything to show, because our design is not having anything like that. So we just change it to none. And what you mean that that thing will not have any list at all? Can you see now? It looks like the normal stuff. So it's a list, but we remove what is there. And in the next class, we are going to be working on this section like that. You can see on mobile is going to be placed on top of each other, because we are placing them on top of each other on mobile like this. But once you go to a bigger screen from tablet, then it's going to be side by side. And we need to make sure that this one is taking 3 times of what, even though it looks like that right now, but it's because we've not styled it. So we need to tell it that we want this side to take 3 times of whatever that is on the right. Or we can just say this one should take 2 times of whatever that is on the right side, which is simple to do like that. And that thing will only happen on desktop. As you can see, you have the top, and under the top you have the left content and you have the right content. So from our CSS here under the tablet, because that's where we need it, not on the mobile. The mobile is okay already, but I was still going to do some styling on the mobile in the next class. So inside the top like this, we have the left content, and at the same time inside the top, so I'm using command because it's the same. No, it's not the same thing I want to do. So this one should be flex to like that, because it's going to be twice than the other one. So inside the top we have the right, so we have the right content like this. So this one is going to be flex 1. So the left content is going to be 2 times whatever the content on the other side like that. Once this thing is saved, then it's going to give us what we want. Let me check. I hope it's applying my CSS. So let me check here like that. So whatever you're applying is going to show here. So open the top like this. So look at the left content, and as you can see, I can't see anything. So which means it's not applying my CSS at all, because I can see that this thing is not what's going on. So we have the top, we have this. So flex 2, we have 1. Where is it? Where am I targeting? 768. Hope I'm not in any wrong this thing. Oh, it's not saved, because I know it's not saved. Let me save it. What's wrong with it and why it's not saved? Because I know that this thing was not. Yeah, as you can see now. So let me click on left. Can you see anything you apply is going to show here, because before it was bigger. So this one will be 2 times whatever we have here. No matter the screen you are working on, it will always make sure that this one is only 2 times on the left side. And again, you know, we've already limited the stuff to 1200. So here now, that 1200, this one is going to be 2 times of whatever this one will be taking, and everything is okay like that. So on mobile, it's going to be stacked on top of each other, which is what we have here. And when we get to tablets, then it will make sure that they are not side by side. For all this one too, we're going to talk to them when we get to that part, and we make sure that this one too, this text is on this left and the content is on this right. But because we've not applied the CSS, that's why it looks like this. But once we apply the CSS, everything is going to come in place like that. So I'll be stopping the recording now, and I will upload it. Then in the next class, we are going to continue from there. That will be all for today. Stop.